Were you successful? Let's try it together now. We have one action creator already. Now I'll add more. The second one I'll add is simply called decrement. And therefore, the type will be decrement. I don't need to pass any payload to it. Now come add and subtract. So let's start with add. I'll name the function add. And here we now need a payload. If we have a look at the counter.js file where we dispatch it, there we set up a payload, value 10 or value 15. How do we get that payload into our action creator? Well, keep in mind, we execute it here in our container. So this is where we probably want to pass any payload as arguments to the action creator. So we should expect the payload as arguments. So here, for example, a value argument, you can name it whatever you like, to then set the val property, and I'll just use the val here because I used it before so that I don't have to change my code in the reducer. So val on the created action will be set equal to the incoming value. Now the same will happen for subtract. Oh, I should also change the type before I do that though. So the same will now happen to subtract. There, subtract, like this. Type should be set to subtract, and I also get the value which I'll pass on the val prop. Now finally, if we have a look at the counter.js file, the container, we also see for onStore and onDelete results, so for the actions dispatched there, we also get a payload, result and result LID. So we should also create the action creators with these payloads in mind. So I'll just add another action creator, I should say. I'll name this one store result. That's the camel case notation I was referring to, starting with a lowercase character, but each word inside the entire word then starts with an uppercase one. So here in this action creator, for the store result action, I will get my result I want to store, and I expect to have a result property on the action which gets created in the end. So let's go over there. Let's expect a value or argument which I will name res. You can pick any name you want. Important, a result property has to be set, and I will pass res as a value. The type also is a different one. It's store result. Now finally, let's create the action creator for the last action we have. It was delete result, so I'll name it appropriately. Here I get the result element ID, and therefore the type will be delete result. And if we consult our counter container one more time, we see that previously we dispatched an action with result LID as a property. We should keep that pattern so that our reducer still works. So let's copy that property name, head back to the actions file, set it as a property here, and assign the incoming res LID value as a value. With that, we got a bunch of action creators. We can now import them all in our counter.js file. So there, I will simply import everything as action creators, and now I can use them down there when I dispatch them. So for example, increment now needs to be called on action creators. The same for decrement. We can use action creators and call decrement there. The same, of course, for add. There we call the add method, but here we need to pass the value as an argument, as you learned. So make sure to do that. For delete, you can also call subtract and pass a value there. So there we used, if I have a look at the caption, 15. So let me subtract 15 here. And for the store result action, I'll call action creators store result. Here we need to pass the result we want to store, and we receive this here as an argument to that property related method. So here I will pass on result. And finally, for delete result, I'll call action creators delete result and pass my ID on. The ID is also received on this anonymous function. So I'm just using the action creators here to create actions. I still dispatch the same actions as before. This didn't change. Now I still get an error that some file isn't found. This should be a bug here. I will simply restart npm start and it should fix it. Let's see. Yeah, it was pointing at the wrong file, but we still have a problem in the reducer, which makes sense because we moved the position of the actions.js file. So in our reducers, we have to adjust the import paths. It's no longer in the folder above the reducers folder. There we have to go into the actions folder instead, and then it will work again. So adjust the import paths in both reducers like this, save everything, and thereafter the application should work again. Let's now click these buttons, and we see indeed that we are successfully manipulating our store again. This time through our action creators though. Thus far, only synchronous code runs in them. As I said, action creators are useful for handling asynchronous code. So let's dive into asynchronous code next. But let me also quickly elaborate on the question whether we should use them for synchronous code or not. The answer is, it's up to you. It's a clean way of creating your actions. You have everything about actions in one file. You don't have to create the action objects anywhere else. This is a tiny cleanup, which can be considered good. So nothing speaks against using action creators for synchronous code too. But as I said, it will be extremely useful for asynchronous code. We'll see this in the next lecture.